Hi everyone, it's Lou from CraftStash. Today I'd like to talk to you about nesting dies, and due to the popularity of our previous nesting die video, which we will link down below for you, we were scouring the web for some new ways for you to use your nesting dies that we didn't refer to in that video. And we have found 3 fantastic craft experts that give you fun tips, and I'm going to cover those all in one video for you. The nesting dies I'm going to be using are all from the Creative Craft Products range, again listed down below for you so you can easily find them. We have got nesting dies in small A2 sizes all the way up to sort of large 8x8 inch. So I'm going to be using a different selection of shapes here that work with the new techniques that I'm going to be showing you. Now, the first technique I found for you was a channel on YouTube called Lost in Paper. Now, I believe the lady's name is Therese, and she has done a beautiful technique where she's used nesting dies to cut out kind of a stenciled flowery image and layer it up. So I thought, well, I'd love to do that, but I want to make it even quicker. So I'm actually going to do it with a pattern paper. So this particular pattern paper has come from my Textures Woodlands collection. You'll find that on CraftStash as well. And I have taken 3 sheets. Now, Therese has a really fun way of actually saving paper as well when you're doing this. So I'm going to run you through that, plus an additional tip that I've got for you too. Now, one of the sheets of paper, now whether this is a stamped image that you've recreated 3 times, whether it is a pattern paper, whether it's something like a stenciled image the same way as was used on the inspiration channel, either way, you're going to want at least 3 of these. So I'm going to put one to the side. That's going to be our base layer. Then I'm going to take another one and I'm going to place the largest of my nesting dies inside of this. So I'm just going to pop that around about there. Now I'm going to make sure it's in the middle. You can measure it if you like, but kind of roughly, so it looks about correct. That's where I'd like my mats and layers to be. And I'm just going to pop that down, and I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. Now I'm using low-tack tape from Creative Craft Products as well as the nesting dies. That is a brand that has a huge array of craft tools that you can use, and you're going to find you'll come back to them again and again because they are really inexpensive but work fabulously. So I'm just very gently going to peel off my low-tack tape. Now, what I love about this pattern paper is that you don't get any of the print that comes off. And I'm going to place that. That's going to sit over the base image. But I've now got this part. So this part I'm going to use, and I'm going to pop that over the 3rd sheet. And on the 3rd sheet, I'm going to cut out the middle section, so the middle of the 3 nesting dies that I've got. So let's just move my plates out the way. Now I can see, if I just lift that up, as you can see, I can see the line where this last die cut, and I'm just placing my die in the center of there. Now, you don't always have to do the central either. You could also do this so it's a little bit offset. That actually leaves you with a really fun image too. So just taping that down onto the bottom layer, pop this to the side, and I'm now going to cut out this layer too. So then I've got my next layer that will sit inside there, and I just need to cut out one more layer. Now, I don't really want to use a 4th sheet of cardstock to do this because it's really going to take up quite a lot of paper. I'm going to have a lot of wastage. So I'm going to come to the 1st die cut here, or I could come to my base layer. I'm going to cut the smaller die out from this instead. I'm not losing excess cardstock or paper, and this is all going to be covered over. So I just want to make sure that this sits straight on my paper there, and I'll die cut that smallest one. Now, an additional tip from me, we're working with layering upwards, going from largest to smallest, but don't forget about your waste. If you stagger these in the opposite direction, so your largest die cut is on the front, smaller underneath, and you could even die cut into smaller through that as well. If you've got enough sheets, you can actually layer these in the opposite way if you wanted to. So you could have it going to smaller pieces. We're not going to be using that, but that's a really good reason to keep your waste and make sure you're cutting from the very center each time so that everything lines up later on. Now to put this together, I'm going back to Creative Craft Products branded items again, and these are some of the craft foam pieces. I absolutely love these. These are large craft foam squares. Now because I've cut the circle out from my largest panel, I'm actually going to trim some of these squares just to make sure that they'll fit within that frame that we've now got. And it's important that you use foam for this layer, otherwise you're just not going to see the edges of all your die cuts at all. You're going to be building up some dimension here, so you might even want to consider something like a box envelope rather than a flat one for a card like this. Now I'm going to place this, and I'm going to be really careful about lining it up with the pattern that's underneath. I'm here focusing on the letters and making sure that they're correct, and then looking at the toadstool, for example, the leaf there, everything. Now a top tip as well for you is at this stage, pop a couple of foam pads just in the center there, because although we're missing that piece, you're going to want to lay your next layer on top of there. And again, just hover this over, making sure that this lines up, particularly the letters there. We've got the toadstool at the bottom, the acorn leaves top and bottom, really easy to line up. And lastly, the same with the smaller piece. Now, as I say, on the channel Lost with Paper, Therese did this with a beautiful stamped and stenciled image that she repeated 3 times exactly. But like I say, with pattern paper as well, that's a really gorgeous image. A lovely way to add interest, depth and texture to a piece of pattern paper if you don't have time to do the stamping and stenciling. But thank you so much for the idea. Lost in Paper, go and check that out on YouTube as well. Now the next technique is one I saw on a channel called Lisa Mears Designs. Now Lisa has created a window as such. So she's used nesting dies, in particular rectangle ones, and she's used them in a different composition to create the look of a window. So I'm going to do this in a similar sort of way. So I've taken a large rectangle, and then I'm also going to take some smaller rectangles as well. And I'm going to place these both vertically and horizontally until I've got kind of a design that I like that gives us lots of windows or boxes. And then we can place some of our elements. In this case, I'm going to use the Snoopy Peanuts license product, the characters. So I think something like that looks around about right. I've got a nice board around everything. You could actually build a house image with these in this way as well. I'm just going to tack everything down with low tack tape. So one there, and then I'll need another one probably along the center here, just to keep everything in place. And I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. I'm going to just remove my tape and my dies, and I am left with a really fun frame here that I can use for popping characters in. So what I've also done is use the same die to create a mat to sit behind them, just like so. And as you can see, I've slightly offset them to give it a little bit of a fun character look. And I'm going to place these all down onto a background so that we've got lots of colour going on. Again, I'm using foam pads here just to raise up the frame. Again, with the frame, I've slightly skewed that just to give it, again, more of that sort of cartoon look. And I'm going to take some of the ephemera from the Peanuts collection. Now, if you're wondering where you can get this, this is all from CraftStash. It's exclusive to CraftStash, so you won't find it anywhere else. But this just creates the most beautiful backdrops for all of these characters to sit either in. So Snoopy's just going to have his feet inside there. And again here. And then we've got the sentiment that can go across a couple of them like so. It's all good. How fun is that? So you can really have fun with little windows like this. So you could put like characters actually peeking out of them if you've got something like that. You could make these even into little shaker pockets. Honestly, you can have so much fun when you're creating your own windows, and nesting dies are absolutely perfect for doing this with. So thank you to Lisa for that idea. Now, talking about shaker elements, hopefully you're going to also love this next technique inspired by Alina Craft. So on the channel, Alina Craft, again linked down below. I loved the way she took nesting dies, in particular hearts, and created a side pocket for a shaker. It was a really fun idea. You could add a frame to it as well, being that these are nesties, and you can also add some smaller hearts in too. So the technique used is going to be similar to this as follows. So we're going to open a card up, a card base. This is just a plain white card base. I've got a little bit of ink on there, but I'm not worried, that will be covered over. And then I've got a panel of cardstock. I think on the video red was used, but I'm going to use a bright pink. And then a heart was placed just offsetting or offset from the card edge, so overlapping the card edge. This is going to be taped down, but it's also a good idea, I think, to tape down your cardstock to your card base too. We're actually going to cut through both layers at once to ensure that both layers have the aperture in exactly the same place. So I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine this way, and for this reason I'm actually going to take this 5x7 card over to my larger die cutting machine. So once you've cut that through, you'll have 4 pieces. You'll have the white and the pink heart that comes out, and then you'll also have the white and the pink base. So the base is going to go on the reverse on here, but we're going to do something else with that in just a moment. And then the pink heart that cut out is going to sit inside, but on the back of the card. So that's going to be glued just here. I would suggest using a wet glue for this. You could also stamp a sentiment onto it first if you wanted. With the wet glue, you've got that little bit of wiggle room if you need it to make sure it's positioned in just the right place. So I'm going to close the card up again, and I'm just going to place this in that aperture there. Perfect, and allow that to dry. Now, leaving that for the moment, we are now going to add our shaker element. Now, this is a really fun way of using, basically recycling elements. So I've got some plastic packaging here, and Alina did exactly the same. So she's used a plastic envelope to adhere to her card for the shaker. She used the corner, so the bottom and the side, just along here, and taken a pen just to kind of draw around the shape like so, and then cut that out. So you end up with a pocket that does have an open edge or some open edges and some sealed edges. Now this doesn't have to be precise at all, because this bit is all going to be hidden. So I'm just going to use a little bit of wet glue just to adhere this down. You could use wet glue or you could use double-sided tape, depending on how strong your wet glue is. I tend to use the bookbinding glue from CraftStash, which is absolutely brilliant, and it will adhere plastic. It just takes a little bit longer to dry than if you were adhering, say, just paper on paper. So now I'm just going to take some general single-sided plastic tape, the sort you'd wrap your presents with, and I'm going to seal up one of the edges. I've just left myself at the top there a little bit of a pocket open for placing my sequins in there. So I've placed 2 types of sequins, or 2 colours of sequins in there, and then I'm going to seal everything up with some more tape. Then you can take the first panel that you cut and flip it over, and it will fit perfectly on the inside, covering up all your workings. Once you've got your shaker done like so, and it's all nice and neat, you can use the smaller nesting dies to add accent hearts around that window. So there's 3 more ways that you can be using your nesting dies. A big thanks to Therese Lost in Paper, Lisa from Lisa Mears Designs, and Alina from Alina Craft for showing us 3 new ways that we absolutely love. We hope you do too. Let us know in the comments which is your favourite, and don't forget to go over to the other channels as well. Give them a thumbs up, and thank you for the ideas. Now, if you like videos like this, don't forget, of course, to subscribe to the CraftStash YouTube channel. You can find a huge range of nesting dies through this link up here, and we think you'll also really like this video just here. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again very soon with a new tutorial.